Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining the June educational series um, with Brad Whittle. Brad is the manager of Health Information Exchange at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Today, he's going to be speaking on the Peer Group 5 Pay for Performance Overview. Brad, if you're ready.
Yeah, all right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for inviting me to this. I love, as I was telling Amanda, I love opportunities to get in front of the hospitals, particularly the Peer Group 5 hospitals. Um, I think it was like a year and a half ago, I came up to Traverse City and got a chance to hang out with a lot of Peer Group 5 hospital representatives, and I think it's good for me, and we'll really anybody from Blue Cross to get in front of you folks and have a chance to share what we do and let you know that we appreciate your partnership and all that. So I've been asked to come and speak to you about the Pay for Performance program, or what we love to call P4P here at Blue Cross, and specifically the Peer Group 5, or the Critical Access Hospital version of the P4P program. And so what I plan to do is just give you a really high level overview and then get into some details about how the different measures work and what it's all about. This may be a repeat for some folks, but hopefully we all get a little something out of this. So let me just first start by setting the stage at a really high level, at the level of just kind of what is a pay for performance program. And really it's Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan we actually have 3 different versions of the Pay for Performance program. The one I'm going to spend the most time talking about is Peer Group 5.
When I did kids, it was a lot better when they would come. I'd send them down and they'd be like, "Why do we have to do that?" Like, what do you think we had you for?
Lindsay, could you? Thank you.
Yeah, Pay for Performance programs at Blue Cross. There are 3 types. The one I'm going to talk about most today is Peer Group 5. Because that impacts most folks on the phone today, I believe. And the other 2 are there's the Peer Groups 1 through 4 Pay for Performance program, which is much larger, much more complex, has a lot more moving parts than the Peer Group 5. And then there's also a skilled nursing facility Pay for Performance program that a lot of people don't really know about. And that's even more simplistic than the Peer Group 5. So in complexity, it goes Peer Group 1 through 4, Peer Group 5, and then skilled nursing facility. So those are our 3 Pay for Performance programs, and they're all very similar in nature. What they are designed to do is they're designed to encourage and facilitate hospitals or facility, any sort of facility that is impacted in the case of skilled nursing facilities. They're designed to encourage and facilitate these facilities to do something. In a lot of cases, it has very much to do with transmission of data, sharing clinical data, as we'll see in a minute. But at a fundamental level, it's a program developed by Blue Cross to encourage facilities to do something in exchange for an increase in their reimbursement from Blue Cross on their inpatient and outpatient payments from Blue Cross. So that's the really, really basic idea of what they are. So, as I said, the objective is and now I'm gonna speak specifically about Peer Group 5 right now, and feel free to chime in or put something in the chat or whatever if you want to. If you have questions about any of the details about the other programs, but I think today we'll focus on Peer Group 5 for the most part, but happy to talk about the others. So objective is to encourage and facilitate the submission of clinical data. And again, this is Peer Group 5, clinical data to the Michigan Health Information Network, or MyHIN. If you haven't heard of MyHIN, you'll know all about them soon if you have anything to do with your P4P program at your hospital. For eventual use by the greater medical community of Michigan. So the idea is, and I'll give you kind of like the original proposition that sparked all of this P4P program business. And that is the Admit Discharge Transfer Notifications, ADTs. I think it was about 14 years ago now, somewhere between 10 and 14 years ago, something like that. We launched this notion of wouldn't it be great if every facility in the state sent their admit discharge transfer notifications to one centralized hub, MyHIN, and then MyHIN kicked those out to all of the concerned parties, the rest of the medical community in Michigan. So I go to the hospital, to the emergency room, that generates an ADT. That ADT goes to MyHIN. MyHIN looks at it and says, Brad Whittle went to the ER. We better let his primary care doctor know. We better let his cardiologist know. So we're going to kick that ADT out to the medical community so that Brad's doctors that have a relationship with him know what's going on with him. That was the initial, that's what sparked it all. And it kind of grew and grew and grew after that. And so now we have this full-blown pay-for-performance program that involves a lot more than just ADTs. So that was the objective. And again, the incentive, like I said, is an increase in your inpatient and outpatient payment rate for your Blue Cross patients. And for peer group 5 hospitals, it's up to 2%, 2 percentage points that your reimbursement rate from Blue Cross can increase based on your performance in the program. The peer group 5 P4P program is made up of basically just 2 very simple components. Well, I shouldn't say very simple. The first one's pretty simple. It's just a CEO attestation form, and it's due June 1st each year. And it's just a form that the CEO will sign off on, saying that it says it can vary year to year, but basically it says you have some sort of program in place to monitor patient safety and quality and stuff in your hospital. And that's nothing really needs to be done there except for a sign off that says, yes, we do that. I know I'm being very vague about that, but that part doesn't impact me at all, but I just know it's part of the program. And then the other part, which does impact me, it's kind of the part that I run, is the health information exchange measures portion. So those are the 2 components to the program. And then within the, oh, sorry, does somebody have a question?
Last one. But did you check the fridge?
Could you please mute?
Okay, so the health information, can you?
RODEWAD, could you please mute your line? Thank you.
Why does Lindsay get a Michigan badge and I'm still?
Could you please mute your line?
Hey,
Could
there we go.
everyone please ensure that they're muted? Thank you.
I know this is super exciting stuff. Okay, so within that the HIE component, there are 3 different measures. They're current, I guess I should say technically there is a 4th measure right now that for the 2023 to 2024 program year that just ended that we are working on final scoring for. There was a 4th component, but it was, I won't go into detail on it because everybody got the point for it. It was just 1 point, and it was everybody got it because it wasn't really applicable anymore, and that has been removed for this upcoming 2024 to 2025 program year that we're in right now. And so the HIE measures are basically 3 different things: it's ADTs, CCDAs, and statewide lab data. So that's what it's evolved into as far as the data that we like to have transmitted by the facilities to MyHIN. And then again, MyHIN routes that data out to the concerned parties in the world of physician organizations and practices. Okay. So that is, that's kind of the lay of the land for the P4P program. So now let's talk about some of the details of kind of how it works. So the HIE component has these 3 measures. The first measure is we ask that you transmit ADTs to MyHIN and that you meet the data quality conformance. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, because in my original example, 10 or 14 years ago or whatever it was, when we said, wouldn't it be cool if hospitals sent all their ADTs to MyHIN and then MyHIN routed them out to the other concerned parties? It took some doing to get that data moving, but once it did start moving, then we immediately started to see like, oh, okay, just because data is moving doesn't necessarily mean that it's super useful. right? It may not be complete. There may be fields left blank. There may be fields that are erroneously populated on those ADT messages. And so we've added this component of data quality conformance, and that really just means, are you populating the important fields? Are you populating them with the correct characters? Like if it's a numeric value and you put letters in it, that doesn't do anybody any good. And not only is it populated with the appropriate characters, but is it populated with the right kind of characters that are actually also a legit valid result? So if it's a numeric field in the ADT, and let's say it's BMI, and you put 9999, those are digits, so those are valid, but we all know that 9999 is not a legit BMI. So that's kind of like the short primer on what conformance is make sure the fields are populated that need to be populated and that they're populated properly. And then measure number 2 is, like I said, it's transmit exchange CCDA data, and CCDA is consolidated clinical data. No, consolidated clinical documentation architecture. It's kind of a mouthful, but CCDAs are like your medrecs, some people call them, care summaries, some people call them. It's the ADT is what happened, what was the event, and then the CCDA is more of the like, here's what we did to the person while they were here. It's a little bit more detailed than the ADT. And then you have lab results, ORU results, some people call them. And again, all 3 of these measures are just about getting this data moving from your facility to MyHIN so that MyHIN can do their magic and get it out to the other folks. And we do this on a point basis. So there are 10 points available for the entire program for the year. 4 of those are ADT, and then 3 and 3 for the CCDA and labs. And we kind of track this quarter by quarter and assign points. We do this kind of in the background. You don't really see anything. We don't give you quarterly scorecards or anything like that. This is just, I'm showing you this so you know how it works, like how we do the methodology, behind the scenes here at Blue Cross, and how the points are assigned. And the little asterisk underneath this table is important. And I'm sure a lot of you folks on the phone know that you can come to me or Zara on my team. Zara is a senior analyst on my team who actually does the scoring. She owns the spreadsheet, this massive document that she uses to score it. I don't do that part of it. She does. But you can come to Zara and myself and say, hey, we have some crazy issues going on with our EHR vendor. They're outside of our control. We need help. We're losing points, but it's something that's outside of our control, and we do have the ability on my team to hear you out and grant exceptions and help you out if there's something going on. So please keep that in mind. I don't want hospitals to think like well, Meditech is messing this thing up and there's nothing we can do about it, and we're just going to lose all these P4P points and we just have to deal with it. You don't really have to just roll over and take it. You can call and ask for help on that. So there's that. Now, some of the logistics of the program. For the peer group 5, we measure from April 1st to March 31st every year. So it's past April, so we're in the 2024-2025 program year. We finalize the scores in the summertime, and then usually like near the end of the summer, a final scorecard goes out to the facilities, kind of indicating what your points are. Once you receive that final scorecard, we really can't go back and change anything. So what I have asked Sarah to do, and I think she's already done that for this program year that just ended, I asked her to, prior to the summer, send out like kind of a preliminary score to the facilities so that you guys can take a look at your scores. And if something seems way out of whack, you have time to come to us and say, hey, we didn't get any points for this, but we've been doing that all year. What's going on? And that has proven to be quite helpful. We've gotten a lot of feedback from hospitals and a lot of emails and calls saying, just that, like, hey, we thought we were getting all the points for this, but we didn't, or whatever the case may be. Because what we found, Zara and I have only been at this in our roles here with this P4P program for about 2 years now. And what we discovered last year was the final scores went out and there was like a flurry of calls and emails, people saying that this doesn't seem right, this doesn't seem right. But once those final scores are issued, there's nothing we can really do. I think we could potentially get like an exception here and there, but it's exceedingly difficult to do anything once the final scores are published, because everyone's score is dependent on everybody else's. So if you change one hospital's score, you have to literally change the scores for every hospital. It's a nightmare. So these pre-look scorecards that Zara sent out proved to be pretty helpful. So again, scores are finalized in the summer. You'll find out your final scores at the end of the summer, and then the incentive, which is in the form of an increase in the amount you're reimbursed, or the percentage that you're reimbursed by Blue Cross for your inpatient and outpatient Blue Cross patients, that adjustment to your rate goes into effect October 1st and runs through September 30th of the next year. So that's a little bit about just kind of the measurement and the scoring and how we do everything behind the scenes here. Any questions? I hear some. I just didn't know. Okay, feel free to jump in if you have questions. And you could.
Brad, we had one question from Deb Lull. Sure. And she wanted to know: are we able to objectively discern if the greater medical community in Michigan is assessing this data?
Oh, meaning are they? The idea is you send it to MyHIN sends it out to the medical community, and are they actually using it? Kind of thing. If that's the question, absolutely. So we have an entire department at Blue Cross that creates reward programs for physician organizations, individual practices, individual physicians, down to the granular physician level. And several of those initiatives have elements built into them that basically monitor the level at which they are receiving this data from MyHIN at the physician organization level, the way in which they're disseminating it out to their practices, the way the practices are then ensuring that the data gets in front of the individual physicians and the nurse practitioners and physician assistants, everyone, and to what degree these data elements that the facilities are sending into MyHIN, the degree to which those data elements are making it into the patient record, and are they being added to a population health registry. There's tons of reward programs in value partnerships around that stuff, many of which I manage. So yes, the other side of this coin, it's not just let's put the screws to the facilities and hospitals and make them send their data in. I would say there's an even bigger effort on the other side of that coin to make sure folks are actually using these to improve patient care. But good question. That's and it's funny because when I speak to physician organizations about stuff like this, I get that same question, like, well, what are you doing to make sure the hospitals are are doing their part? So I love opportunities to show one side of the house what the other side of the house is doing or what they're responsible for. So good question. So let's zoom in just one more level deeper into the different measures. So the first one, ADTs, as I mentioned, it's not just about sending ADTs, it's about making sure the fields are populated and they're populated properly. And that's what these little light blue headers, if you can see, I know this is kind of small, but if you can see group A, these are specific fields within the ADT, which is HL7 format. So that's just the format for the document. It's called Health Level 7 is the name of the format. And within HL7, you have these different codes, and those codes are fields for various bits of information. So like PID-5.1 is the patient's last name. So this is the kind of detail we give you in the P4P program guide that shows you, okay, here's, in order to be considered compliant and get the points, here's what you need to do. And group A it refers to it as complete routing, and then group B, those fields are complete mapping, and then group C is adherence to coding standards. And those three levels kind of relate back to what I said. One, is it populated? Two, is it populated with the correct characters? Like, is it numeric or is it alphanumeric or whatever? And then group C, is it populated with the correct characters, and is it a valid result or a valid entry? So that's this. And so over on the right-hand side of that table, we have the what we call the threshold for full conformance, and that is, it's usually it's always a percentage, and that just means what percentage of the time are you populating the patient last name? And it's pretty easy with peer group 5 because they're all 75%. So really all we ask you to do on the ADTs is populate these fields properly 75% of the time or more. And then we look at kind of your conformance level on all of these. I think it's 26 or 27 fields. And if you are overall, you're meeting the conformance threshold for 75% of all of these fields or better, then you get the points. That's really kind of it's pretty simple the way we do that math behind the scenes. Is just, if there's 100 fields and you're doing well on 75 of those 100 fields, you're 75% overall, and you're conformant, you get the points. So that's how that works. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that if people have them. It's much simpler for those CCDA, those medrecs, and the lab data, because we don't apply any conformance standards to those fields. We just ask that you submit your CCDAs to MyHIN, and we ask that you submit those lab results to MyHIN. That's it. Now, on the peer group 1 through 4, which is much bigger and much more complicated, there are conformance thresholds, just like this table over here on the left. We do have tables for various fields. It's in the high 20s. I think it's like 27 or 28 fields per measure that need to be populated properly. So there's an entire table for CCDAs and an entire table for the lab results. And the thresholds for most fields on peer group 1 through 4 are 95%. So a much higher standard for those larger hospital systems and facilities. So that's a little bit about how those compare. And then there's additional, for peer group 1 through 4 hospitals, there's a fourth measure that asks that they submit ambulatory CCDAs as well as the facility CCDAs. So there's that, and then there's also there's a newer measure for peer group 1 through 4 where we are rewarding for participation in a claims use case at MyHIN, where basically what we ask the hospital to do is send all of your pre-adjudicated all payer claims to MyHIN for the purpose of kind of feeding that use case at MyHIN with claims data, which is going to be used for all kinds of really cool stuff. And I can go into detail if you want on that, but we're really focused on peer group 5 here. But just wanted to give you a little idea of how the peer group 1 through 4 P4P program differs from peer group 5.
Brad, we had another question
Sure.
from Cindy Donajowski. She wanted to know is, do you know if MyHin will be correcting their conformance calculations so they will not be measuring PG5 hospitals by PG1 through 4 thresholds anytime soon?
Yeah, so that's for instances where you believe a hospital is being incorrectly scored or graded by MyHin within their conformance system. There is MyHin has I think it's monthly, I could be wrong, but they have a conformance task force call where it's designed for those sort of issues, those sort of questions. Because when we get in, there's a bit of overlap with this program. We get a lot of questions here at Blue Cross about what MyHin does, and then MyHin gets a lot of questions about what Blue Cross does. And so what we're doing, and actually starting this Friday, we're having hospital roundtable calls here, hosted by Blue Cross, where we talk about the Blue Cross end of the P4P program to kind of contrast with the conformance task force that's held by MyHin, where they talk about the technical details and finer points of how they do conformance. But what I will say is, if you have any issues at all with contacting MyHin about the way they do what they do or whatever, feel free to reach out to me. I can get you in touch with the right people. I've not known MyHin to score a hospital incorrectly. We've had a couple instances where maybe a peer group 4 hospital moved to peer group 5, and it took a little bit of work to get MyHin to change that in their system so that MyHin recognized them as a peer group 5 hospital. So there's some work involved in that. So if you have a hospital that has changed peer groups, that's one thing. Let me back up. One thing I will say about conformance, the way I understand it, is regardless of how MyHin scores a hospital in their conformance, when Zara on my team goes in to score the hospital, as long as she knows what peer group your facility is, she can take the MyHin data from their conformance module and apply it appropriately to your hospital. So again, I'll just say, if you have a situation where you feel like you're being scored incorrectly, just reach out, and Zara and I would be happy to set up a call. We can talk about it. We can go through the details of what you feel like is incorrect, and that's what we're here for. So,
Sherry, I saw that your hand was raised. Did your question get answered?
I think at the end of that, so Brad, my concern is I have for Bronson Lakeview Hospital and Bronson South Haven Hospital, Zara sent us an update on our points we received. And one of them, we're not getting full points. How do you guys communicate that gap and what is missing between the full points and the points we're receiving so that we can close that gap?
Let me see. So you had a situation where you didn't receive full points, but you didn't understand why?
Yeah, so she wrote in here that we're getting 3 points for ADT, and I understand that there's 4 points available for that. True?
Well, no. So that let me back up here real quick. This is what I should have put it on here somewhere. This is this scoring structure for the 2023-2024 program year that just ended. Or excuse me, sorry, scratch that. This is the measurement year we're in right now, 2024 to 2025. We haven't scored anything for 2024, 2025 yet, I don't think. Or I know, because April, May, June. Yeah, June's not even over yet. So we haven't scored anything for 2024, 2025 program year yet. In last year's program, this 4 was a 3 because we had that 4th measure. It went 3, 3, 3, 1 for the points, and then that 1 point was for whether or not your hospital helped out a physician organization with a innovation program or a project that they were doing, and we just gave everybody the point because it was so rare that a PO would come to a hospital and say, "Hey, we're working on a project. Will you help us?" And if you did, you got a point. But if you were never asked to help on a project, you just automatically got the point. And it just was like, I inherited all these programs. I've only been here for a couple of years. So that was one of my first orders of business, was to remove that from the program. Anyway, long story to tell you that last year it was 3 points for ADTs. That was the full score.
Okay, thank you for helping me clarify
Sorry,
the year.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It was a
I have
long-winded
two
way.
more questions,
All right,
Brad.
yeah, fire away.
So Julia Valley wants to know, do you know if the patient safety piece of the CEO attestation still has specifications of what type of culture of safety survey needs to be completed? Press Ganey has a culture of safety survey that they use or that they would like to use rather than the score, but wasn't sure if this would be accepted by Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah, so I can speak out of school on that. I don't run that part of it, but I do know. I've seen the attestation form, and they list like a few different common survey names, and you can check a little box that says this is the one that I do, or there's an other line. And my understanding is that as long as you're doing one and you tell us which one it is, it's fine. I've never seen anybody. There's no points assigned to that attestation form either. So the short answer is you can do whatever survey you want, as long as you just indicate what it is. And then the longer answer is, and furthermore, there's no points for that. Technically, if you cannot honestly complete that CEO attestation form, you shouldn't even be part of the P4P program. But I've never even heard of or seen any hospital be told like, you can't be part of P4P anymore because you didn't do your attestation form. So anyway, that's the answer to that.
Okay, so Sarah Hagerman wants to know, does a hospital have to have critical access status to qualify for PG5? And can small hospital quality for PG5 rather than PG4?
So I'm not an expert on what all of the criteria for what makes a hospital PG5 or PG4. I can find out. If you want to shoot me an email, I can bounce that over to our facility contracting folks who determine that stuff. My understanding is that it's just really bed count. It's the size. I don't know if it really has anything to do with the critical access element, but I could be wrong on that. I'm not the expert. But
Okay,
happy to dig deeper if you want to shoot me an email.
Yep, I will send that to you, Brad, and then copy Sarah in the question. And then Michelle McRobbie wanted to know, is Blue Cross Blue Shield sending notifications for fallouts during the program period? For instance, if someone is not in the full conformance, will the facility be notified to correct?
No, then that's a great question, and it's a good point for me to speak on. If you fall out of conformance, there's no, MyHIN doesn't have anything set up in their system to kick out like hey, you fell out of conformance on this thing. They don't have any like algorithm set up to do that. But what they do provide is access to their back end user interface called My Gateway. And if you don't have access to My Gateway, I would suggest reaching out to MyHIN sooner rather than later to get a login for My Gateway. We have a lot of facilities that use it daily. And what My Gateway does is it's I've seen the graphical user interface, like it's really slick and easy to use. And you log in and you can just click on ADT conformance, and then you put in the name of your hospital, and it tells you, like, I mean, it gives you all the gritty detail that you want to know about how you're doing and on every field, and with CZDAs and with labs. And So you can see all of that information in my gateway by logging in. So yeah, reach out to MyHin if you don't have a My Gateway login.
And so Megan Mackey, or Megan, sorry, she said that she receives monthly emails on her conformance reports, shows her where she is with her compliance or where her compliance stands. And then Jennifer Bentley said she's also gets an email letting her know where she is on their conformance too.
Okay. And I know of those emails. I just know not everybody gets them, so I don't advertise them because that's a whole MyHin thing, and I'm Blue Cross. So I know I have heard there are some facilities that get those. If you're not getting those and you think you should, I don't know if it has something to do with the type of hospital or what it is, but I just know not everybody gets those. So if you do, that's great. I know Zara is thinking about potentially doing something like that on the Blue Cross side. But it's really kind of, it gets dicey because that's us dipping into like MyHin work, and there's toes to be stepped on and stuff there. So but yeah, anyway, if it comes to like getting communications from MyHin on your monthly performance and stuff like that, that I would definitely recommend reaching out to MyHin to see if you can get on their mailing list for that, if they can even do that for your facility.
That cleaned up the questions. So if you
cool.
want to
Yeah.
keep going.
Well, I don't have a whole lot more. So I guess this is really my last slide. The last slide just has questions. So I kept it really kind of short and sweet with the slides because I don't like plowing through like 50 slides on a call like this. But I will say kind of the other thing to mention about this program, and it kind of relates to this little footnote in the bottom right of this slide. For measures 2 and 3, the CCDAs and the labs, we just ask that you send it to MyHin. And what we're doing is we're looking at it and we're analyzing it to see what it would look like if we were to introduce some conformance standards like we do for ADTs on those two, kind of like how we do for peer groups 1 through 4. But as I settle into this position, I've been here 2.5 years, and I've done a lot of thinking and a lot of looking at these P4P programs. We've been, with the ADTs, we've been doing it for over a decade. And I'm just going to kind of put this out there. I don't really have a slide about it, and I don't have any any sort of formal verbiage around this, but where my head is at is we're thinking about making some changes to the P4P program. Now, I will say one big caveat is Blue Cross, it is our program, and it does impact our reimbursement to the facilities, and we own the program, but we can't just make changes unilaterally to the P4P program. We have an entire work group that involves, we bring facilities to the table, we bring the Michigan Hospital Association to the table, the state comes to the table, and we all we look at this and we say, hey, we're thinking about changing our P4P program. Here's what, here's our idea for where we want to go in the future. And then there's a lot of discussion that goes on. So that's the big caveat. When I talk about changing the P4P program, I'm not saying like I'm going to make some sweeping change to P4P and just everyone's going to have to deal with it. But with that said, we've looked at the performance over a number of years, and we find that facilities they're either scoring all the points and they're doing really well on this, and they have been for years, or they're kind of just at where they're going to be at. We're not seeing a lot of change or movement with the performance levels within these P4P programs. So what that tells me is maybe it's time to make some changes. Maybe it's time to rethink the way we do this. So I'll just put it out there. If you're going to hear this, you're going to hear a lot of this all again if you're on the call on Friday at our roundtable call. I'm not sure who all accepted the invite to that, but we want to do some critical thinking about this program. Do we need to keep harping on all of these different fields within the ADT? You know, when we look at the hospitals that are doing it, they're doing it well. They're sending good data to MyHIN, and they have been for years. So is the right path forward to ratchet that up and make those 75s 95s? Is it the right path to introduce that granular conformance analysis to CCDAs and labs and kind of make it look more like the peer group 1 through 4? Or do we go a different route? Is the path forward something totally different that I haven't even thought about? So I talk about this to anybody who will listen, because I have ideas of my own, but I'm kind of soliciting ideas from the audience too. Because again, think about what I said in the beginning. The P4P program is it's your opportunity to earn a higher reimbursement rate from Blue Cross for doing something. We've got the data. Like I said, the data is good overall. I mean, there's hospitals that struggle. There's some that just don't even send CCDAs at all, and it's usually because of some limitation with their EHR vendor. So there's not everybody's perfect, but do we keep hammering the same program year after year after year and don't see any improvement or any decline? Like everybody's at their cruising altitude, and they're going to hang out at that cruising altitude. So do we shift course? So there's not really an ask there other than to just give it some thought. And I'll kind of give you one of the things that I've been thinking about is what does it look like for a hospital, like an individual hospital facility, to be quote unquote good at health information exchange? What does that look like? Does it mean you have certain vendors in place that have certain capabilities? Does your hospital itself have certain capabilities? Do you have an executive level person in charge of health information exchange or clinical data sharing or something like that? What are like the base capabilities of a facility that makes it good at this stuff? Because maybe we don't need to get down in this granular level and really just start nitpicking all the different fields and all of your HL7 files that you send over. Maybe we don't need to do that anymore, but maybe we do. Maybe that's only part of it. And then maybe we kind of like we tone it down a little bit on this stuff, and we introduce some new things that that maybe get to the core of like I said, it would get to the core of what makes a hospital good at HIE, and then start looking at that. And I don't know. That's just one of the little rabbit holes my brain's been going down with P4P. So anyway, with that, what other questions do we have, or what sort of discussion would anyone like to have?
2 more. It says, what weight will be assigned to the AUR?
Ooh, what's an AUR?
Tisha, do you want to follow up with what you mean by what the AUR is? And in the meantime, Cindy wanted to express, because they are struggling to send CDA data because of their EHR, that does not equate with the quality of the care they're providing to their patient.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, and none of this is meant to draw any sort of like causation or correlation. Like, well, if you don't send CCDAs to MyHIN, then you're not good at taking care of your patients. It doesn't have anything to really do with that. What we're positing is that generally speaking, if a hospital is sharing their data with the greater community, they get a reward. and that's higher reimbursement from Blue Cross. So none of this is meant to point any fingers or imply anything at all. And that's why we do make exceptions. There are a couple of facilities that I know of that haven't sent any CCDAs for a certain period of time because of a limitation on their EHR, and we gave them the points for that. So because we were able to discern that it was not, that it was outside of the control of the facility. So
Michelle said she would be curious to know what the end goal was when Blue Cross Blue Shield decided to use HIE as an incentive. What information was looked at? Decreasing admissions? Question. What is the data showing us now? Are we achieving or moving towards the intended goal for HIE?
yeah, so that's a good point. So with the peer group 1 through 4 P4P program, there's, like I said, there's a lot more moving parts. There's a lot more elements. There's a huge readmission portion of it where it looks at readmission rates and kind of correlates that back to HIE capabilities and stuff like that. The peer group 5 P4P program is like I said, it's very simple. It's just about these 3 different measures about HIE. There used to be more elements to it. But yes, let me get to addressing your actual question. Yes, we do a lot of analysis on our end of how does HIE performance relate to cost of care, quality of care, readmission rates, things like that. And we do see some beneficial correlations there. And I want to be careful and use the word correlation instead of causation, because I can't say to you honestly, a hospital that performs at this rate with their HIE stuff, that is the cause of their lower readmission rates. I'm just saying there is a correlation. We see correlation with reduced readmissions. We see correlations with reduced repeat ED, emergency department visits from the same member. There is, what was the other one? There's the readmission rate, the ED usage, and I believe it was like overall cost of a certain element. But anyway, to answer your question, yes, we do bring this information in and look and see how hospitals compare when they are doing well with the HIE. So we know there's at least some correlative benefit to this.
So I have another question from Deb Lal. She wanted to know, are there plans for Blue Cross and Blue Shield to conduct a study on this process, and has it improved outcomes?
On this process. Look, I know it's hard because we're not having a dialogue with the people asking the questions, but I guess I would ask if they could elaborate on what this process is.
Deb says you answered the question. You're good.
Oh, cool. Oh,
you
cool.
answered it.
Good deal. I love these questions. Because it gets back to what I was talking about with, what is this program even like? Is it doing the right thing? Are we barking up the right tree with this? And I love that people are thinking about that.
Yep. And Tisha said she'll take her question offline. She just needs to do a little bit more research.
Okay. Yeah, happy to, share my email with everyone. If you don't know my email address by now, please get it, or I don't know, maybe Amanda can.
Yep, I told the group that I'll be sending out your email address as well as Zara's this afternoon.
Cool.
Once we finish the call.
So yeah, that's really all I've got as far as presentation content. But I'm happy to, we've got a few minutes left. I'm happy to hang out and chat with you guys about this.
Oh, Deb also would like to know, how do other states compare to Michigan? Do you know?
So yes, I do know, and we are vastly, vastly ahead of the curve on all of this stuff. I would say there's probably a tiny number, maybe 2 or 3 states out there that are more advanced with health information exchange than Michigan. Michigan, with the combined effort of the state creating MyHIN as the one data hub, and that's the critical part. Like a lot of these other states out there, they don't have one data hub. They have several. And before MyHIN came along, I think we had 12 or 13 data hubs in Michigan. So when you have 12 data hubs and and you're a facility and you're only linked to 1 or 2 of those data hubs, you can immediately see right there, like there's not universal data sharing. We have one data hub, it's MyHIN. They do a great job. People complain about certain things here and there with MyHIN, but I will tell you they do a great job of what they do. It's a big job. And the other, and I'm not patting myself on the back, I'm not bragging or anything, but the other big driving force in Michigan that makes us so advanced is Blue Cross's programs, our P4P programs, our physician organization rewards with the PGIP pool. I won't go into detail about that, but basically Blue Cross has put up hundreds of millions of dollars in rewards to get this data moving. Because if you go to a physician, like if you go to a practice unit and you say, hey guys, we need you to figure out all of the technical hoops you got to jump through to get all of your clinical data sent to this data hub. And then this data hub is going to crunch all that and send it out to other concerned parties, including the payers and the state and blah, blah, blah. Now we just need you to do that for free. You're going to get crickets. And that's what a lot of the other states, that's where a lot of the other states are at, is they may have an infrastructure for data sharing, but they don't have anyone putting up the incentive for, or the, and I shouldn't even call it a reward. I think it's the dollars that we pay in these rewards do facilitate the medical community. It provides the funding for the infrastructure you need to do this work. Are we super advanced as compared to other states? Absolutely. Do we still have a long way to go? Yeah. There's still a lot of stuff isn't standardized. There's a ton of different EHR vendors in the state, dozens and dozens of them, and getting them all to standardize the way they do things is really difficult. But anyway, I'm, for whatever reason, like really long-winded answers today, and I apologize, but that's a long-winded way of saying yes, we're super advanced in Michigan, probably top 3 in the country.
So Michelle said, so Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan is the only entity attaching incentive?
We're not the only one, but we were the first. We're by far the biggest. I think if you add up all the other payers' incentive programs for data sharing, if you add them all up, it's still just a fraction of what Blue Cross does. We just kind of led the way with it, and we encouraged other payers to get on board with this. I do believe Blue Cross is the only payer with a hospital reward program. I think Blue Cross is the only one with a hospital reward. I know a lot of the other payers have smaller reward programs for physician organizations and practices and things like that for their utilization of the data that you're working so hard to send to MyHIN. So that's, rest assured, there's not just Blue Cross, but other payers too are saying, all right, physicians, now the hospitals they're sending all this data and now you need to start receiving it and using it. What else we got?
So she just said, I assume that Blue Cross Blue Shield promoted the P4P program across the nation.
Well, yeah, we do. We'll talk to anybody who will listen, basically, is what I'll say. A lot of states come to us and ask us to kind of give them the rundown. I've had a couple conversations with different states myself about how this all works, because they want to do something like this, and we, 20 years in the future, when we're in this utopian world where everything works properly. The idea is if we have this level of data sharing nationwide, then we really got somewhere, because I could go to an emergency room in San Diego and instantly my primary care physician in Kalamazoo, Michigan would know about it, which is a Bronson physician. So shout out to the Bronson person on the call. But yeah, so we don't promote, like we don't try to sell the concept or anything like that, but we'll advise and help mentor other states if they want to try and do this kind of work.
All right. Are there any other questions for Brad while we have the last 3 minutes of the call? Anything popping up? All right. Well, we thank you so much, Brad, for joining us today and presenting. We all greatly appreciate it. I'll share the video later on this afternoon. Hopefully by latest tomorrow, we'll get that up on our website. But thank you again for everyone joining this afternoon, and thank you again, Brad.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.